Mitch Lafon here, inviting you to check out my interview with Black Star Riders bassist Robbie Crane. We talk about their new album, Heavy Fire. We look back at his career, time spent with RATT, and a whole lot more. Before checking out Robbie, please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON, on Instagram at Mitch_Lafon. And with that, here is the one, the only, from one of my favorite bands, the Black Star Riders, bassist Robbie Crane. We are speaking with Black Star Riders Robbie Crane. Robbie, always a pleasure. I've known you going back, I think, to the Vince Neil band days, right? Carved in stone and stuff. I mean, it's been almost 20 years, I guess, right?
Oh, more than that. The Carved in Stone was, what, 94, 95?
95.
Right in that era?
Yeah,
so we're looking at 22. Boy, look at us. Time flies and we're still breathing.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing. I know we're going to talk Black Star Riders, but I really actually loved that Carved in Stone album. It got a lot of, Mötley Crüe fans saying, what the hell is Vince doing? And there's too many loops and samples and blah, blah, blah. But first of all, the version that was on the Japanese version of 25 or 624, the Chicago song.
Yeah, I love that.
Was slamming. And I liked Make You Feel, and I liked the cry. Anyway, I liked that album. I really did. Honestly did. I thought it was great.
We had a blast making it. It was Brent Woods and Vic Fox and Vince and myself. We had collaborated through Warner Brothers with the Dust Brothers, who had done Paul's Boutique from the Beastie Boys and Hanson and all these bands. And they had the ideas of the loops. And they just kind of would let us go into a room and, recording studio room and just jam. They'd record us and then they would create loops out of what we did. And that's kind of how that record was made. Marty Friedrichsen had a hand in the lyrics, a lot of stuff. But like 25 or 624, Vince would just come in and go, hey, man, I want to do a copy of this or a cover of this or... it was really fun. I mean, we just had a great time, and it took about 9 months and cost about $1 million to make. But the truth is that was one of the first kind of rock, I guess, loop hip-hoppy kind of records. Was from that time. It was '94, and Paul's Boutique, the Beastie Boy album that the Dust Brothers had done. Had they paid for all of these samples, that they had sampled from people, that record they say would have cost like $80 million. But the reality is, if that was before they were busting people for stealing loops. So our record had some loops that we had to re-record, but it was pretty cool, man. We had a good time making it. It was definitely a good time.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good album, and quite frankly, when a guy goes solo, he should be doing something different. He shouldn't just be giving you Mötley Crüe light. I mean, that's. If you're going to do that, stay in Mötley Crüe kind of thing, right? So.
Yeah, and I would love to give anyone credit that deserved it, but the truth is that was really Vince's vision. Yeah. He was hanging out in the clubs a lot, and he was the one that came. I remember him coming to me. I was at his Malibu house, and he said, "Dude, I want to make a record like this." And I was like, "What? Like you're Vince Neil from Mötley Crüe? What?" He goes, "No, really. I want to have a departure and do something cool and different." And that was definitely all Vince's vision. So I got to hand it to him. It was definitely risk taking, and it was like you said, some fans loved it, some fans hated it, but it was what it was, and it was who Vince was at that time, and it's who we were. And unfortunately, he was going through a really, really tough time with his daughter passing at the time, and Brent and he and I had written the Skylar song with him. Yeah, and that was a real tough time. I mean, it took us a little longer to make that record, for obvious reasons, but it's just really an amazing experience. And, sad time to be around Vince and to be with Vince, but a great time to be around Vince and to be with Vince because, I was glad I was able to be there for him, He's a good guy, man. I know he gets a bum rap, but, for me, he was very good to me and always treated me very, very nice and always respectful and just very cool. And he took good care of me for all the years I played with him. And I have nothing but respect and love for Vince. He's a good guy.
Yeah, so we'll let's get to the Black Star Riders, and then we'll talk about some of the other bands. We'll talk about Adler's Appetite and RATT and all that wonderful stuff. But Black Star,
yes, the Black Star Riders.
I'm a huge fan. They have 3 albums. You are on 2 of them.
Correct.
The new one is Heavy Fire. So let's just give me the spiel on this one. It is great, dirty rock and roll. Whatever you want to call it, it's what a rock album should be, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so. We all hope so. Being in a band with 2 predominant writers like Damon and Ricky who write year round. I mean, that's they're just musicians and they're writers, so they they just sit around and write songs all day, whether it's for a record or for their own solo records or for whatever they're doing. They're continually writing together, individually, and they inspire everyone in the band to also do the same. And they're very open. I mean, I played with people that weren't open to, suggestions with regard to ideas or music, and they're very open. Hey, you got a riff? Let's hear it. A song idea, melody, let's hear it. They're very receptive to that, and it's nice to be around that. It's very infectious, and so I guess when we finished Killer Instinct, they just started writing again. I mean, it's like nonstop, and Ricky just started writing, and we finished Heavy Fire. He's probably already has another record ready to go. So it was a great experience to write the songs. We went to Nashville, as we did with Killer Instinct, and we worked with Nick Raskulinecz again, and it's a great experience, and just a great band, great bunch of guys, good chemistry, and just really talented players in the band. I feel very blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah, so tell me, first of all, how you got involved. You had Marco Mendoza. He went off and did the Dead Daisies. How did you get the call? How did they know you? Did Damon or Ricky know you from the RATT days? Did they know you from Adler? So how'd you get the gig?
Yeah, everyone asks me that because it's such a what? The truth is that a friend of mine, Kerry Kelly, who played with Alice Cooper for a long time with Damon,
and Night Ranger now.
Yeah, Night Ranger, that's right. Yeah, and Kerry and I played in Adler's Appetite together and in RATT. But he had called me up to sub a gig for Rudy Sarzo. He was doing a thing with James Kotak, just like a band they had together. So I went to Russia, and Jimmy DeGrasso subbed for James. So it put Jimmy and I together on a gig in Russia, and we met on that gig, and about a year later, just out of nowhere, I hadn't heard from him. He just texted me one day and said, "Hey, are you available? Are you interested in checking out the Black Star Riders?" And we talked, and I was playing with Daniel Powter at the time, which is a Canadian pop artist. Your boy, had a bad day.
Yep.
And I really was not doing any rock gigs at that point. I kind of was like not so sure I wanted to play in the rock thing. I was just kind of doing my own thing and enjoying where I was at. And so I, out of courtesy for Jimmy, I said, "Yeah, I'll check it out." And I really honestly was like, I don't want to do this. I'll be nice. I just would be courteous and do the audition. And but then I heard the record, the All Hell Breaks Loose record, that they sent me some songs to learn. And I was like, wow, these guys are pretty good. So I downloaded the remainder of the record, and I just really started to dig the music. And I told Damon and Ricky this, that I initially, had no intention of really, investing myself in the audition other than just to be courteous and go play as best I could. But when I heard the record, it really made me go, whoa, I think I want to be a part of this. So I auditioned here in Los Angeles where they were out with Skid Row. They played at the Canyon Club, and I came down to soundcheck. And Dave the Snake Sabo stood in front of me the entire audition, screaming my name and flipping me off. Well, I played the songs, and I auditioned, and I thought that I did terribly. And 2 days later, they called me. They were in Japan, and they said that I got the gig. So it was cool, man. That's how I got the gig. Was through Jimmy DeGrasso.
Who is currently playing with a version of RATT or with RATT. So
sure, yeah, Jimmy's amazing. I mean, anyone that Jimmy plays with is blessed. I mean, the guy is one of the best drummers in the world. I mean, absolutely.
Oh, agreed. So talk to me about the challenges, because they were Thin Lizzy. They decided they wanted to make new music, and they knew that if they called it a Thin Lizzy album, that they probably would have been crucified. So talk to me about the challenges of making a new band, a new brand, making new music, and then getting it to the people.
Yeah, for me, I fortunately, I say, I was never a part of the Lizzy thing, and I actually, as we all know, came in after. I joined in May of 2014, and so the Lizzy thing was already a couple years past. And from my understanding, they just decided to dissolve Lizzy, and they were starting this new thing. And so when I joined, my understanding was that there was no more Lizzy, or at least that what we were doing had nothing to do with Lizzy. And no disrespect to Lizzy or anything that they're doing, I preferred it that way because I'm a huge Phil fan, and it's tough for anyone to see, Lizzy without Phil. And so for me, I thought it was great that they were doing it. And Scott obviously is an amazing writer, and Scott had a key hand in the Lizzy thing with Phil. So, he has every right to go do what he wants to do, and I think it's amazing, and I respect and support him in it. But for me, I was like, man, I want to be in Black Star Riders. I want to be in a new band. I had already been in RATT, you know what I mean? I had already been in Vince Neil and done all those other things where I was replacing somebody or subbing for somebody. So I kind of was more into doing something that's new and fresh, and I saw Black Star Riders as that. So for me, when I came in, yes, we did do a lot of Lizzie songs initially, and as the years have gone on, we've slowly but surely thinned the set out of the Lizzie songs, and not with any conscious intention. I think it was always just been, we wrote a record, Killer Instinct, and we had some great songs that we really wanted to play for people and that we felt inspired by, and we just kept adding them to the set list, and slowly but surely it thinned. And as you know, here we are on our third record, my second, and we just rehearsed up in Lake Tahoe, and the set list is thinned even more. You know what I mean? And which is good. It's a good positive thing because, if you're going to take a Lizzie song out of a set, you better have something strong to take its place. And we really feel like we have some great tunes that we're really proud of, and that sound great. I mean, the band just sounds great. It's just such a great experience to be in a band with these guys. So
now you're rehearsing in Tahoe. I think Tahoe. You said, right?
Well, yeah, we went up
to rehearse.
Jimmy DeGrasse. Excuse me?
To rehearse.
Yeah, Jimmy DeGrasse has a house up there.
Okay.
And so we went to Lake Tahoe just to rehearse for, a week, which was great. It was really cool.
So let's talk about the challenges of the North American market, because whenever you see Black Star Riders, they're in England, they're in Germany, they're in Europe, you're doing fine. But as a Canadian, if I want to go see you, it's difficult. So what is the plan in terms of North America? Do you plan on attacking it more with this third album and trying to get over here and maybe doing some of the smaller clubs just to get the name out there?
Absolutely. I mean, being from here, 3/5 of the band and actually 4/5. Scott's from here as well, although he lives in London, has for the past 40-something years. Ricky lives here in America as well. So 4/5 of us live here, and it's our home market, and we absolutely would love to play America as much as possible. And we have. We played on the Killer Instinct tour. We did a couple of weeks with Europe and by ourselves. And it's always our intention to play the American market. I mean, North America is very important to us. But, like you just said, the reality is you have to go where you're welcome and when you're wanted and where you're able to play, whether it be, we're the type of band that we've been doing it for so long that we are financially in a position where we could do what we need to do, whether it's breaking even or making a profit. We would love to break the territory, but sometimes you get into these territories and it just becomes almost impossible for you to do it. So, yes, we have an intention on doing it this year, and we're talking about various ways to do dates, and we haven't put anything on sale yet, as our primary market is Europe and the UK, and so we're doing our tours of there first, and then we will absolutely come to America and play dates. We debuted in '91 on the top 200 on Billboard's top 200, which is pretty impressive, I must say, for no support and very little, no radio and no anything. So we're proud of that. We know that there's a market here for us. It's just up to us to really carve that niche out for ourselves and just put our heads down and focus on it.
Yeah, and fans don't seem to appreciate sometimes that it is a lot of work and it is very hard because. You have Scott Gorham, who's been a professional musician for almost 40 years, and Damon and yourself. To get back to those small clubs playing for 75 people, yes, that's how you build an audience, but, at some point it's like, let me go play Download instead. That's...
Well, that's and I agree with you to a degree on that. But the greatest thing about Black Star Riders that I will say, and for me that differentiates it from most bands of our genre or age group, I will say, is these guys are willing to work. They're really, for us, it doesn't matter if there's, and everyone says the cliche, I don't care if I'm playing to 100 people or 100,000 people, it's all the same. These guys really love to play, and you can see it in Damon and Ricky's acoustic shows that they do, and they can see it in our club shows that we do clubs around the world. We do them, along with Download, we'll do a medium-sized venue, and, it is what it is. And the guys are just down to do whatever it takes to get the music out there, and because they love playing and they love being musicians, and that's what we do, Sometimes it's great, it's feast or famine, sometimes it's not, and you just go with it and deliver what you can and hope that you're building on something, and that it'll reach the people, and hopefully they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've been doing my best to tell the world, I guess, right?
We know. We see it, too. Thank you.
Yeah, I love this, and I'll tell you, I usually go for these long walks with the dogs, 10 kilometers at a time, and you need the right music to do that. You can't do that with the sound of, birds and crickets, right?
Yep.
And boy, All Hell Breaks Loose and The Killer Instinct and now Heavy Fire is just the right dose of rock to get you moving. It is just so glorious,
No, thank you. Yeah, no,
Bound
that's
for
great.
Glory is what I'm. Let me get to RATT for a second, and I don't want to get into the. If people are expecting us to talk about all the legal stuff, no. You grew up as a fan of Juan Croucier, the bass player.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell me what it was
Juan,
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me what it was like for you to step into his role for those few years that you were there and play, his riffs, I guess. Do bass players have riffs? I guess they do, right?
Sure, yeah. No. I think for myself as well as for my dad that we were both excited that I was able to do that gig. I used to play the RATT records from, growing up in Hollywood. RATT was one of the bigger bands and on the Strip and just in the clubs and stuff. So I would go see them when I was a youngster, Mötley, RATT, all those bands, Steeler, Wasp. I went and saw Armored Saint, all those bands when I was a kid. And so to go from that to them playing, their big tours and, as big as they got, and then to getting the call from Stephen Pearcy to come and play in the band was just an amazing thing for me. And I'll never forget going into the studio the first time, and, there's Warren and Bob and Stephen, and I'm like, playing, we didn't play any RATT songs. We actually were just working up this record we did, Collage, the songs that I played on the Collage record. So we had worked just those songs up, and I was like, God, I just want to play back for more, or lay it down, or something. And the funny thing was I knew them from when I was a kid, so I already knew the songs, and so I was excited, but, unfortunately we didn't do it for about a month and a half. Being able to be, to play in anyone's, position, or, that you looked up to or grew up to is always an honor, number one, first and foremost. So I approached that gig with as much respect for Juan and for his spot in the band as I possibly could. I never felt like I was the bass player in RATT. I always just felt like I was keeping Juan's seat warm, and I told Juan that when I first, met him, that this is his gig, and whenever he's ready to come back, it's his. I would never stand in the way of him coming back to his gig. He wrote those songs. He was a part of that. His background vocals were very key to those songs, I thought. And, I always just tried to do it justice. I never tried to replace or to act like I was, oh, this is my gig. It's, I very much knew where I stood. And I was very honored to play with Warren and Steven and Carlos and John Corabi and all those guys that were in the band. And, it was a great experience. I was in the band for 16 years, and I think I did 3 or 4 records. And, it was a really amazing experience. I'm very blessed to have been able to do it,
Yeah,
Not a lot of people can say they did that.
No, they can't. And I do want to ask you about the records you made, because Infestation came out in 2010.
Yep.
And, I got to say, the media was sitting back, as rock reporters, quote unquote, and we're like, uh-oh, new RATT, this is going to be a disaster. And it turns out that it was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the pressures going into that one, because you knew that if you effed it up, that was it for RATT. You couldn't make a shitty record. It had to be great. What was it like, going into those sessions, and then when you actually had the final product and you got to sit back and, did you get a sense of, yeah, man, we did this?
Yeah, RATT to me has always been like the 9 lives of the rock bands. They always land on their feet, and they always have some great record deal that they were afforded. From the Columbia deal that we got with Collage back in '99 to the to the Roadrunner deal that Tom Lipsky brought into us, which was initially through his Loud and Proud label, and it became Dave Rath and everybody at Roadrunner. But we've always been RATT at the time had always been handed these great opportunities, not because they didn't deserve them, but because they did deserve them. They were great musicians, great songwriters, and really good dudes. So I don't think we ever quite felt pressure. That's one thing I think that we didn't feel. I think we were more like, we had done some tours. We had just gotten Carlos Cavazo in the band. We had went out with Extreme, and we kind of were like, okay, let's get together and write some songs and knock this record out, kind of deal. We went into a studio in Burbank, and we just started, introducing each other's ideas. We all had our demos and whatnot. And the producer at the time, Elvis Biscuit, who did Alter Bridge and a lot of it, Slash the Snake Pit and bands like that, he kind of told us what he expected. He wanted to hear a real RATT record, not some new modern thing like we did in the '99 record, trying to be current. He said the label and him want to hear a real RATT record, and so let's bring the riffs. Who's got the best riffs, man? Let's hear them. So he kind of, like, to a degree, kind of pushed us to have like a friendly writing competition, and I thought it was great because everyone in the band seemed very receptive to that, and which was not the case typically, at least in my experience with them. Prior to that, everyone was the writing in that band was a little bit more closed off. It was, Steven's extremely predominant writer, and he's written 50% of that catalog, and lyrics and music, and Warren's a predominant riff writer, and Bob had some songs that he wrote as well, and Juan obviously would just come in with finished product, as would Robin, I would assume, although I never wrote or worked with Robin. So we had this writing competition, and everyone brought their riffs in, and through all of that, there were these great ideas, and some of them we had to fight for, and some of them didn't make the record, and some did. And I was lucky enough to get a song musically on the record, and Steven wrote some great lyrics to it, and Carlos and Elvis helped me finish the song, and it was a very, I think that was a healthy competition that made that record so good, because the records prior to that I had been involved with, like Collage and the '99 self-titled record, they were more just written by one or two of the guys, and no one else was really welcome to write, and that's okay. I understood, because that was the chemistry that had worked before. So in this situation, I think that Infestation was so healthy and a solid RATT record, because they allowed each other to go outside the box, and maybe more like the original formulas that RATT had done before, where it was just like best song wins or best riff wins. And Carlos Cavazo came in with some great riffs, man, like "Eat Me Up Alive," and which he had pretty much done, there was a part that I think Warren interjected in there, and then the Piece of Me, is that what it's called? Best of Me, which was. Best of Me. Carlos, again, just had that riff. I had introduced this song, and I was so angry. It was a bit round and round, but, hey, man, it was RATT. and everyone was like, hey, man, don't be ripping off our song. So I had this demo that I had played, and I was a little miffed that they didn't, no one was very receptive to it. I was like, all right, whatever. And Carlos goes, well, I got an idea. And he played that entire that intro and that whole part, the whole basic structure of the song. He just played it for us, and he had this old school cassette recorder, like one of those ones you sit on a desk with a speaker on it, the cassette recorders, that he used to put his ideas down, and he played us some more of it, and we were like, wow, that's a killer riff. So, Carlos really had a big hand in that, and in that record. I thought that was very, very cool, because Carlos is a sweetheart, and he's really got a great ear for music. I mean, he wrote that Bang Your Head tune, him and his brother Tony, and obviously Kevin, God rest Kevin, is such a great guy. Kevin Dubrow, they wrote on that. But Carlos was such a strong writer, and him and Warren together had such a great melodic feel for that record. I think they really helped us all with Elvis Biscuit. Obviously, Elvis had an immense input in the record. I think we were able to just kind of capture something. And again, with regard to pressure, I don't think we ever felt pressure. I think it was more like it was kind of fun. We were like kind of having fun. We went to Elvis's place in Virginia Beach to record it, and we all stayed at this killer house on the water on the bay, and it was just a fun time, and we really had a good time making. I think we really captured that energy of just a bunch of dudes having a good time,
Yeah, and,
so I think that.
Well, yeah, and it's a great album, and the one thing that I think that fans don't know, and maybe you can tell them, is that you almost didn't pick Carlos to be part of RATT.
I didn't almost pick Carlos to be in RATT.
Right? Yeah. Well, share the story of how Carlos. You're auditioning guitarists, and
well, at first, Crosby had told us that he was moving on. Crosby had said, I'm going to go do some other stuff. He was working with Gibson at the time, and he was going to do the solo stuff, which I had hoped for John that he would do sooner than later, because John's an immense talent, and playing rhythm guitar in RATT's a great thing for anybody, but for John Crosby, I had just hoped to hear John out there doing his thing again. He's such a talented guy and a sweetheart of a person, and he is out there doing it again, and it's great to see him doing it. So he had told us he was moving on, and so we needed to find a guitar player, and everybody out of the, I got the guy, I've got the guy, everyone in the band, I know the guy. So we all had our best buddies, I wanted Brent Woods and Steven wanted, his guy, and Bob had 5 or 6 guys, and the management company, and then some friend. You know what I mean? So we had to kind of weed through everybody. And I always found it interesting, even when we auditioned guitar players in '99, how Warren always kind of stayed kind of quiet about who he was always just very open to whoever. He wanted to find the right guy that he gelled with, and I completely agree. I always thought Warren should be the guy to pick the guitar player because he's got to work with him, he's got to play with him. Warren's an amazingly talented guitar player that Daddy knows best. You know what I mean? So Warren came. I don't know who he came to first, but I just know that he had said it to me at one time. He goes, "Hey, what do you think of Carlos Cavazo?" And I said, "From Quiet Riot?" And he goes, "Yeah, from Quiet." I was like, "I don't think that's the guy. I think he's too metal." In my small-mindedness, and I stand completely corrected, I didn't think that Carlos was the right guy initially. Not we hadn't played with him yet, but I was kind of like, God, I couldn't picture it. So we had auditioned a bunch of guitar players at Third Encore. We set up like, every band does. They set up the audition day or whatever, and they have like a, smorgasbord of guitar players come through and just play through whatever guitar rig we have up. And we had it set up, and in comes Cavazo. The guy looks like he's 20. He looks like he just walked up the US Festival stage. We're all 50, and he's like all killer tan. We're like, wow, he looks killer, right? So he comes in, he sets up his guitar rig, and we start, all right, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3, and we start the first song, which I can't remember what song it was, but we couldn't have gotten but through the first verse. And in walks Zakk Wylde, and he comes in, and we're playing, and, Warren and him know each other. Everyone kind of nods to Zakk. And he's watching us for a second. He's kind of standing there looking around the room. And he walks right over to the microphone. He grabs the microphone from Steven. And he goes, "Hey, man, what are you guys doing? Auditioning?" He goes, "What are you guys doing? That's Carlos goddamn Cavazo." He goes, "He's got the gig." And we stop playing. We all chuckle. And that quite literally was the end of Carlos's, I wouldn't call it an audition, but jam. And, Carlos was the guy. It was like, yeah, he's the guy. We all knew. And Zakk Wylde just came in and was like, "Dude, what are you guys doing? This is the guy." It was great. It was a great experience, And in the end, Warren was right. Carlos should have been the guy because Carlos is a great singer. He's a great songwriter. He's a great guitar player, and he's a great guy. And good on Carlos.
And I just love the fact that Zakk has spoken. This is the law.
I remember being kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, thanks, Zakk, bye. And we all kind of put our, he's such a strong individual, not only physically, but his personality walks into a room. It's like, he's like Thor, here I am. And we all would just put our guitars down and start laughing and talking to him. And I think we all had the intention of just, once he left, we start playing again, but he never left. So that was the end of it. You know what I mean? And I drove Carlos home that night after the rehearsal, and we actually sat out until like 10 o'clock at night in front of Third Encore with Zakk and his buddy, just talking and drinking beers, which was cool. It was a great experience. So it was cool, man. I think that, Carlos was supposed to be in the band, and whether I saw it or not was irrelevant. Even if I said no, he would be in the band anyways because I didn't have final say in any of that kind of stuff. Right. But it was... my own, short-sightedness, I couldn't see it until he played in the band. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And a lot of respect goes to Rob and Crosby. You can't just replace Rob and Crosby with, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but some dude off the street. It has to, and Carlos is that guy. He's got a history. He was in a successful band.
Yep.
He's got a style. You need to replace Robin with a guy that's, you can't just have some schmo come off the side of the road. You have to. There's one other rehearsal.
I don't think people really gave, not to cut you off, but I don't think people gave. Maybe they did or they didn't. I think later in the history of RATT, or as people talk about him now, I think people give Robin enough credit for how much input, not only musically as a songwriter, but rhythmically he had in the band. His rhythms were very, very solid and tell-all. You just knew when you heard those big hands playing guitar. And again, I never played with him, but you listen to those records and you watch them live or the live videos, and his solos. He was a great guitar player and a really solid force. Him and Stephen Pearcy really worked well together, and you can see it, in the songwriting and in everything they did together.
Yeah, and the interplay with Warren and Robin is, it's at the same level for me at least as what Joe Perry and Brad Whitford do. They know exactly where to fill in for that other guy. You know, it's yeah. I do want to mention one other rehearsal before we wrap this up. There was a time after the self-titled album that Steven took a break from the band, and you had Jizzy Pearl come in. But there is a story of Robert Mason who came and auditioned. Just tell me a little bit about that audition, and in a sense, and again, without being disrespectful, but why was Robert, I should say, not Robin, why was Robert not the guy for the gig? Because he's a great vocalist, he's a great guy. I mean, what happened where he just didn't get to that, you know?
Okay, so yeah, Robert came in. A few people came in, and Robert was one of them. Robert and I had been friends, obviously through our Lynch Mob connection. I think Warren had known him as well through George. So I had suggested we bring Robert down. It was either me or Warren, but he came down, and he sang amazingly. And again, just like the guitar player auditions, everyone had their favorites. We had the smorgasbord of singers as you're around come in and sing with us, and just in a rehearsal studio. And Robert sang, and we all agreed he was the guy. And so I don't think anyone knows this, but there is a recording of him singing "Loving You Is a Dirty Job" out there. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I think
it's out there somewhere.
I think it's been on YouTube at some point.
Yeah, so we recorded. That was the recording that. So we were on Columbia, or Loud and Proud. Or was it Loud? No, it wasn't Loud and Proud. It was
Portrait Records.
Yeah, so many labels. Yeah, so many labels, so many bands, so many times. Yeah. So Portrait, and we had to kind of, I don't want to say we had a showcase, but I think there was a formality there that, before they, moved on from the band, that we had to play for them. So they put together this thing for us at the Viper Room, and Robert was the singer. Now, Robert had played in Cry of Love prior to that. It was also a Columbia band. And so I don't know what exactly happened. All I know is that we went, the four of us, Robert, Warren, Bobby, and I, and played 4 or 5, 6 songs, RATT songs, and for Donnie Einer and Kolodner and them. And that was it. And of that recording was made of Robert doing "Loving You Is a Dirty Job" at the Viper Room as just a showcase, kind of like a showcase atmosphere. And so we had intentions of that Robert would be the guy if we did anything, because you have to remember there was really nothing going on at that point. Steven had left the band, and I don't think any of us at that point, maybe Bob did, saw a RATT without Steven. I mean, I didn't. I mean, my head was like, oh, okay, well, that's over. And or I was under the impression that if we give Steven some time, maybe things will work out in a month or 8 months or a year or 6, whatever. Let's just leave him alone right now. And so this tour came about. Bob had gotten Warren convinced to do a tour. So in May, and we had approached Robert about the tour, and Robert had not heard from us. So I think he had moved on and had another commitment, and was invested in something else already at that point. And I think that's when we made the move to Jizzy. Yeah. Or we held another round of auditions, I think, and there was like a couple of more guys that came down. Warren had a friend of his come down, and then that's when Jizzy entered the picture. Yeah. And then, the funny thing is, and it was still just a 4-piece. Kerry had left to go play with Snake Pit, and we were just a 4-piece, and I saw John Corabi. John Corabi was playing in Union and had borrowed something from me for a tour he did, and I saw John Corabi on the side of the freeway one day, like on the side of the freeway. He was returning my thing. We met somewhere. And he goes, hey, man, what's going on with that RATT thing? I go, oh, we already found a guy. He goes, oh, I'm talking about the guitar gig, not the singing gig. Do you need another guitar player? And I said, yeah, why are you looking? And he said, yeah. So we had the same manager at the time, John Greenberg, and Tim Heine at Union. And so they put it together with Warren and Bob that John would come in and audition and be our rhythm guitar player. And that's how that all kind of happened in one little thing. And, before you knew it, we were on the road. And to be honest with you, it felt weird because, it's RATT, and it wasn't with Piercy. And I think we tried to make it work. I think Jizzy did his best, and I thought he did fine. And John did great, and it wasn't RATT, but it was a fun band for what it was, And I'm kind of glad we didn't do any recordings because I think it would have been, But you could say that about me, being on recordings without Juan on them, But I think Warren and them are happy that we didn't do any recordings because I think that time of history of the band, I think they would prefer to forget, and they probably would prefer to get the time that forget the time I was in the band as well. But
No. But Joe, I saw a lot of the Jizzy shows. I mean, you saw me at a lot of the Jizzy shows.
Sure, absolutely.
He filled in very respectably.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Dude, I love Jizzy. I mean, I was a huge Love Hate fan. I used to go see Love Hate as a kid, again, another band, and I loved their bass player Skid. I thought they were great, and I was the one that pushed Jizzy to be in the band. I thought he was the right guy. I thought he was a great frontman. I thought he could command an audience, and I thought he would have done a great job. And I support everything that he did. And I know, again, for the RATT fans and for even some of the guys in the band, it was hard for them to realize or to even look back on that time. I mean, I would bring it up once in a while, and they would kind of cringe. Not in a negative way, but just like, those times were what they were with Steven again. Let's not talk about that. And, I understand, so. And the same thing could be said, again, for the time I was in the band. I mean, when you're in a situation where you have something that's successful, you want to focus on the successful times. And, there's times where the company isn't as, profitable or headed in the right direction in some opinions, and they don't want to focus on those old times. So I get it.
Yeah.
But when I left the band, it was crickets. I didn't hear from anybody. But you know what I mean? Steven and I would talk once in a while. But it took a couple of years, for anyone to reach out. I would reach out, respectfully. Hey, how you doing? Hope all's well. And, I'd get a response. But, it was very, I was like, okay, maybe I was just a complete dick in the band and they didn't like me. And then, Bob and I did not talk for years. And then Bob reached out and really tried to, and with nothing to gain, he just tried to mend fences. And, we mended the fences and we became friends again. And it was great, man. Bob and I started to build our relationship, so all good.
Yeah, it ends all good. And then let me finish with this here. You, of course, did the Adler's Appetite. EP.
Yes.
And,
yes, that was a great one.
And, the fun part is that you actually covered a Thin Lizzy song, Hollywood.
Correct.
So you ended up...
Terry Kelly.
Yeah. And then, of course, you end up being in a band with Scott Gorham. So there you go. But but what was that like, the Adler's Appetite? Because, Stephen at that time, Stephen Adler, not Stephen Piercy, was still going through, and it's been documented on Dr. Drew's show and all that. He wasn't clean and sober. How was that gig for you? And so what was sort of the expectations? Did you think it was going to be this band and we're going to get a record deal, or was it like... No. Okay.
No. So how that went down, and just really good quickly, Kerry called me. We had a friend named Ryan, his partner, Brian Johnson, that was managing Steven and helping Steven kind of get his life together. And Kerry called me and said he wants to put together a band just to jam to get his drumming chops together because he wanted to have try to work up an opportunity to, play with Guns N' Roses again. So I was obviously playing in RATT again. I think this was about 2001 or 2002, right in that time frame. And we got together with Steven, Kerry and I talked, and we said we need a singer, and, we suggested Jizzy, and then, Brent Muscat was, I think, playing or hanging out with Kerry at the time, so he ended up being the rhythm guitar player. And the five of us got together in a room, and we got together with Steven, and we jammed with him, and he played, he obviously hadn't played in a while, but I thought he played great. I was expecting him to be, terrible, but he was great. He did Steven Adler. And so he played, and we jammed one time. And then we decided, hey, let's try to book a show in Vegas and see if we can just get out there and start playing some shows. So we started doing some little things. It was under the name Suki Jones at the time. And so we did about, 5 or 6, 7 shows. And then I think it was either Ryan or Kerry or Steven came up with the Adler's Appetite name. And we decided to play all Guns N' Roses songs. Before we were just playing a little bit of Aerosmith and a little jam band. And so we started to book some shows around the U.S., just very, sporadic in our time off. And then we ended up going to Europe and doing some really good dates, really, really strong dates. And it made us, Stephen wanted to record some new music. So we just went to Kerry's house. He had a recording studio in his house. And we probably recorded 3 albums worth of material. And so we recorded, of those 3 records that we recorded, we only used 3 or 4 songs for this EP and 2 cover songs. One of them was an Aerosmith song.
Yep. Draw the Line. And
Draw the Line. There you go.
And of course, and then Suki Jones is a lyric from Aerosmith, which is
correct. Yeah, Brent Muscat was like, we should call it Suki Jones. So Brent wasn't involved in the recordings. I think he had left the band at that time, and it was just a 4-piece. And we recorded all these recordings. And the funny thing is that because Carrie would do a version of Hollywood, in the set when we would jam with Steven, and so we just recorded that, and Jizzy would do Draw the Line, so we recorded that, and in that we had written all this other music. So after the band kind of ended, which was about 2005, we had all these masters. there was probably there's got to be at least 20 or 30 songs. And so we were going to get another singer, and we had gotten the guy who's in Quiet Riot right now, which his name, I guess, is Sean Nichols now.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his name was Sheldon Tarsha at the time. But he came down and, he wrote a bunch of lyrics to some songs. So we recorded about 7 or 8 songs with him, and that he wrote lyrics to, and they're great, which has never been released and never seen the light of day, and maybe one day in life we will. But we have that as well as all this other music that we never released. And it's, it's Steven Adler playing great. I think Steven, obviously maybe because of the Strokes or whatever, maybe it's just because of experience. He hasn't been out playing that much in a band, but I thought Steven played great. I thought he needs to keep the consistency up, because when he plays more, he plays better. But I always played great with Steven. I thought Steven was an amazing drummer. And, the guys on Appetite for Destruction and on The Lies and on, one of the songs on Use Your Illusion. And I just think Steven's a great drummer, and I think that it was a great time. And those recordings that we have kind of snapshot of that time, and I'm glad that we have them. Every once in a while I'll put a song on and go, oh, yeah, remember that song? And so it's cool. That was a fun band. But, it was just I always saw it more as a loose jam band that we just had a good time on our time off on. But we went around the world. Like we went to Istanbul, to Japan, to all of Europe, Croatia. We went everywhere. You know what I mean? South America. Guns N' Roses was a huge band, and Steven, we had some really amazing times. Now, with regard to the drugs with Steven, around us, I can only speak for the time around us. He never did drugs. Did he smoke some weed? Sure. Did he drink a beer? Sure. But I never saw him. I can't say I never saw him, but I can say that around us when we played, he never did any heroin or hard drugs or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? There were times where he would slip, but, we all slip, and you're only as good as your support system. So we all just tried to be there for him as much as we could. See, the great thing was that none of us partied like that. We would all drink a beer and go to bed. So it was a strong support system for him,
Yeah, and what I'm thinking is that you should send me those 20 songs. That's what I'm thinking. I'll just keep them in my iTunes. Nobody needs to know.
I think one of the songs, a song called Saturdays, not like Saturday, but Sadder Days. I think that one may have come out, or somebody may have circulated it, because I heard somebody. Oh, I heard that Saturday song. I was like, how'd you hear that? And Sheldon Tarsha, or whatever his name is now. Kelly, whatever Nichols,
Sean Nichols.
He's a great writer. He's a great writer, and he's a great singer. And he literally came in like in 2 afternoons and just like penned this stuff like it was nothing. And if you listen to it, you're like, wow, dude can write and he can sing like very well. He's a really good singer. It's just the band had dissolved at that point, and it was kind of like at the tail. It's like it was not even like the last prayer. It was like the band was over, and we were like, oh, let's just jam with this guy, and so. It was fun. It was what it was.
And a fun fact is that he was replacing Jizzy Pearl in Adler's Appetite, and he replaced Jizzy Pearl in Quiet Riot.
Hey, he's great in Quiet Riot. I saw the video. I was like, wow, check it out. Jizzy was great in Quiet Riot, I thought that was a great gig for Jizzy. I don't know what happened with that. Do you?
I have no idea what happened. It's. I think Jizz, and this is totally just educated guess. I'm seeing Jizzy's doing stuff in Vegas, and he's sort of got a gig where they're doing shows like every week. Or I think he just wants to be at home, and he just wants to be doing shows locally. Now, that could be completely wrong, but that's just the perception that I have. That you know what? Why travel to Bangor, Maine for a weekend bar gig when I can just wake up, be in my living room, and then go do this gig at home, and gig in, that's what I'm getting. But Jizzy's great.
Because Bangor, Maine is kick ass, and you want to go to Bangor, Maine. Dude, I've got my wife would go, where are you going this weekend? Oh, I don't even know. I'm going here. She would go, don't you want to stay home? I'd be like, yes, but I really want to go to Bangor, Maine. You just, we're musicians are so programmed to just do what we love, to get paid to do what you love is just, it's a blessing for all of us, especially at our age. And especially with everything we've been through, we thank the lucky stars we're all still alive, and some of us aren't. And I just feel blessed to be a part of Black Star Riders. Great bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Scott Gorham, amazing, legendary guitar player. Damon Johnson, just legend. Ricky Warwick, who's just so inspiring to all and so super talented. And Jimmy, just playing with Jimmy is, it's tough because I play with some great drummers, I think, in my time. Some people will disagree, but Jimmy is just so on another level. He's so amazing he's just really talented, and the way he plays is so effortless. And he looks like it's effortless. He's almost like kind of remember to get the kids coffee as he's doing these crazy beats. You're like, what the hell is that? So I feel very blessed.
Yeah, and Jimmy's very versatile too, because from the bands he's played with, Megadeth, and he's covering every style. And of course, I'm hoping that he's going to. Well, maybe that's the wrong words, but I know that he's doing some gigs with RATT. But at some point, I guess the schedules will cross over, and I certainly hope that he's going to stay with Black Star Riders. That's fingers crossed.
That's our hope as well, and I think that's what we've that's his intention. That's at least what we've seen. But I'm happy for him that he's playing in RATT. I think it's I've told him this. My time in RATT was great, and for me it was some of the best years of my life, and they're a great bunch of people, and Warren and his family showed me, what it's like to be able to be a musician and to have a family, because I never thought you could be a musician and have a family. And being in RATT really helped me grow up and mature in a lot of ways. And I have a family now with a wife and kids, and I really attributed that to that model that Warren kind of showed me, and also just being in RATT, and they allowed me to grow. And so I think it's a very positive environment, and I've expressed that to Jimmy. And Jimmy knows he's been out there playing for a long time, and he knows situations, and he likes the RATT guys. At least what he's conveyed to me. I've never really discussed it too much with him, but I'm happy for him, and I don't think it's going to conflict. Maybe it will. I don't know. I know Black Star Riders has a new record out, and I think the RATT guys have some dates coming in as the year progresses, but I don't know that they have a heavy schedule yet. And we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But
yeah, well, what we need is a co-headline or a co-tour, and that solves everybody's problem.
See, that's what I said. See, there, and not only does it solve everyone's problems, it also helps us in America to get our profile out there on a real tour.
But to be honest, it helps both. Jokes aside, it would. You could open for RATT here, and it would raise your profile in America. And when you go to London, RATT could possibly open for you there, because it works both ways.
Hey, I'm open to anything. Why don't you, Mitch Lafon, I leave it to you to put it together. You know all the parties, and we can get the talking heads together, and they can figure it out.
That's right. I'm not a rock journalist. I'm the idea guy. That's my role.
You're like the was it the headhunter? You put the companies together. You find everybody there.
Right. I find the talent, but Black Star Riders. Heavy Fire. It is a great album, and it's incredible that you were able to top Killer Instinct, which was
oh man, thank
fantastic.
you. Well, that's a huge compliment. Yeah.
And you do have Pearl a Day on there, who is Meat Loaf's daughter, and of course Scott Ian's wife from Anthrax.
Yeah.
That's another fun little coup. We didn't get a chance to really dig into that, but I think we're at 50 minutes in.
I didn't even know that she was on there initially. I didn't know who it was, I should say, because I was not around when they recorded that. They recorded that, I believe, in L.A., actually, at Jay Rustin's studio. But yeah, what a great experience, huh?
Meat Loaf's daughter.
Yeah, no, I know. Everybody's like, dude, you have Meat Loaf's daughter on that song. I'm like, really? Go figure. It just, go figure. But we got Nick Raskulinecz. Come on. That guy's a monster. He's amazing. Did anybody ever talk about Nick?
With Damon, I've talked about Nick, because his, pedigree is...
Oh, yeah, dude.
He's done Korn. What else has he
Rush,
done? Evanescence.
Foo Fighters. You just go for hours, dude. He's done Apocalypta.
I'm just trying to think here.
Yeah, he's done
Ghost.
He's done Ghost. He's done
Coheed and Cambria, Shadows Fall, Mastodon, Marilyn Manson. Okay, now I've now opened up a page with all his.
Oh, you do? Yeah, I don't even.
Now I'm cheating. I'm cheating, but Stone Sour, Trivium, Fireball Ministry, Death Angel, Danko Jones, which is great in Canada, Apocalyptica. It goes on and on and on.
being in his studio and looking around, like there's photos of me on the just on the internet, whatever. I'm recording the bass, and I'm telling my wife, oh yeah, this is the studio, and she's like, oh wow, check it out. And I go, oh look in that back corner. If you zoom in above the effects next to the beer can on the left of the other thing, he has a Grammy up there. You're like, oh yeah, he won a Grammy with Foo Fighters. I mean, Nick is so. He's so talented, and I'm sure all those awards are probably mean the world to him. But what means more to him, in my opinion, is just he's just a great musician, and he's so inspiring to work with. I mean, he is such a key, in my opinion. And, he's just our sixth partner. He really brings a lot to our records, I think, and I just love what he brings to us. And Nate, his assistant. I mean, the studio, the way we do it. It's just a really cool energy. And, imagine being a bass player going in to record a guy that's recorded Geddy Lee a bunch of times. You're like, I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you, the first time I recorded with him, I was like, great. Right. Jesus. And Nick's,
and he turns to you and he goes, that's not how Geddy would have done it. And you go, damn it.
Yeah. No, I swear I was like, I was so nervous. And then, the night before I cut the Killer Instinct bass, I was talking to Damon. I was in the rehearsal. I was at the hotel in Nashville, and he goes, "Yeah, man." He's talking about the induction of Rush, and I was like, "Yeah, the guy recorded Rush." He goes, "Yeah, did you ever see the Hall of Fame induction?" I go, "No. I mean, I think I did. Why?" And he goes, "Well, Nick was the one playing bass with Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins." And I'm like, "What?" So now he's a great bass player too, and then he's just an amazing musician. So it's you could take it one of two ways. You can be stifled by it, or you could just, be inspired by it. And I chose to be inspired by it. And the greatest thing about Nick is that he's not the guy to go, oh, that was shit. He's the guy to say, that was cool. Did you like it? Great. Let's give it another shot. And he's just very positive in everything he does. And you trust him. I mean, I trust the guy. I trust that he's, I mean, be honest with you, when we did the first record with him, we were kind of like, what? But in the end, it was like, wow, this guy is amazing. So we think we found our guy, and he's amazing. We look forward to making many records with him. So
and I'll mention a couple of more things just on him. His big band that he's sort of best known for, of course, is Foo Fighters, that we completely forgot about. And he's done Velvet Revolver with Slash and Duff. Yeah. And, turns to you and he goes, that's not what Duff would have done.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Awesome.
Always a great pleasure. And sincerely, Black Star Riders is, I don't know if you want to call it a new band because you guys have all been around for such a long time and it sort of morphed from the Thin Lizzy thing, but...
I prefer to call it a new band.
Yeah, it's those three albums, they get better every time, and the first one was bloody brilliant. So you're going from brilliant to brillianter to brilliantist, right? Those words don't awesome. Those words don't even exist, but but for you we're making them exist. And awesome. Yeah, get Heavy Fire, folks. Yeah, that's it's a must. It's real.
Yeah, and get it on vinyl if you can. I mean, I got it on vinyl, and it sounds killer on vinyl. I mean, there's an art to the vinyl.
Yeah, it really is. And for those who want that extra track, I don't know if it's on the vinyl, but there's a song called Fade, which I picked up on the Japanese version. So you got to get it all. And
absolutely.
And hopefully there'll be an acoustic record at some point, because I love that deluxe edition Killer Instinct with the acoustic song. So we need another acoustic thing. That's Ricky Warwick's forte. Lack of a better
word. Well, dude, isn't it all Ricky Warwick's forte? I used to say that too. Oh, he's really great at acoustic, but then he's really great at this, but he's really great at that too. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
He's just, all
and,
good.
On that, I'm going to wind this down because I've actually been doing this for 12 hours today, and I can hear myself sort of stuttering and slowly losing my concentration. But yeah, have fun on your tour that's coming up, and I'm looking forward to SR number 4, number 5, number 12. Don't go away. Just don't go away. And,
we won't.
And figure out a way to play
Mitch.
Canada.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cool, buddy. Cheers.
And there you have it, folks. My interview with Black Star Riders bassist Robbie Crane. Make sure you pick up Heavy Fire. It is an absolute masterpiece. And while you're checking stuff out, please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. Instagram is at Mitch_Lafon. And with that, I bid you a fond farewell and thank you for listening. Bye for now.